Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Haris Savidis. I'm partner in Stelios Americanos Co LLC. And I'm really excited about this webinar because this is a joint event organized by our law firm and Eleon Capital Management Ltd. And I should thank a lot personally Christos Kassianidis for these fruitful discussions and cooperations we have for so many years, and especially on a topic that it seems that it is reaching the top of the agenda nowadays. And I'm speaking, of course, about investments in the green sector. It is true that sustainability, environment, innovation are all some of the key terms that we find across all discussions about investments, and definitely there is a lot of scope for further elaborations and further analysis about these terms in order to understand why this happens, why this particular period of time, what that means not just for investors, but also for a number of service providers, starting with lawyers, accountants, auditors, businessmen, bankers, everyone that has an interest on this industry, and to see how we can further benefit from this initiative. So I don't want to spend more time with my introduction, because we have a lot of speakers today, and I'm very glad that we have also people speaking about actual projects, businesses, to share their experience with us. And I'm sure that in the end of this webinar, we will have the opportunity during a Q&A session to answer more questions, provide more clarifications if needed, and be able to address at least the key aspects of this topic. But before I continue, let me say a few things about the agenda today. So I will start by explaining the meaning of green tech from a legal perspective, of course. So I will try and explain how lawyers understand green tech as an umbrella term in the investment sector. Then we'll have Christos Kassianidis introducing Eleon Capital Management and also provide the market overview of green tech. Georgina Priovolou from my team, lawyer associate in our law firm, she's going to give us the key provisions and the key aspects, I would say, of the regulatory framework. George Karvounis, he will continue from Eleon Capital side with the presentation about the risk management framework for fund managers in this particular sector. While the last two presentations, the first one from Kyriakos Parkounas, I'm sure that a lot of you already know Kyriakos, many years experience in the HR, health and safety and environmental sector, participation in many businesses. And I think it's one of the key experts to cover one of the projects that we want to look at it today. And I refer to a biomass plant, and we will see what kind of technologies and how they approach this very challenging project from their side. Kyriakos is also serving as member of Eleon Capital Management Company in this project, and I'm sure that they have a lot to share with us. While the last presentation is coming from a person that has a lot of successful projects in his portfolio already. I refer to Yair Cohen, who is going to speak about the key role of algae in tomorrow's global food chain, another spectacular project that I'm sure that we have a lot to discuss afterwards. So with this presentation, please, with this introduction, please allow me now to move with my presentation. About GreenTech from a legal perspective. It is true that when it comes to the legal language, if I may use this term, GreenTech sounds a bit unfamiliar and vague. The reason is because we need to try and understand, first of all, what is the definition of GreenTech? Apparently, it refers to something, to a sort of a combination between green, meaning environment, and technology. But the key point here is, what is the actual value of GreenTech from a legal perspective? Is it something that refers to a certain context of obligations and rights, or is something else? For example, it's something that covers some policy actions or some other business priorities that we should safeguard through legal provisions. Well, before I answer this question, before I give you my understanding and my feeling about GreenTech, let's start first of all to see GreenTech from a contextualized perspective, or in other words, let's see what's the broader context of GreenTech. In order to understand GreenTech, we need to look first of all to something that I'm sure we are all familiar, or if we are not familiar yet, we will definitely need to get familiar. And I refer to digitize versus digitalize. Well, digitize is something that has to do with the conversion of traditional data information that are written down in a piece of paper into a digital format. We use a programmer that he transfers this information, data, into a digital language using coding language, and therefore we have everything in digital format. This is something that I think it was one of the major developments of the humankind in the process of communicating between ourselves in a more speedy way and in a more accurate way. And this, of course, is something that we owe a lot to internet. Now, digitalization, it's the process. It's a business process, right, where we use digital technologies to change the model of our business, and we try to get new and more valuable benefits and opportunities in our day-to-day business. Digitalization is something that at least the last 7-10 years maximum dominates perhaps all discussions when it comes to look at the ways we want to develop and improve our businesses. And this has to do with the aim to be more cost efficient and more productive. Now, digitalization contains, as I mentioned before, a number of digital technologies. It is not something that can happen through a single technology. And I want you to keep this point because it has very important legal meaning. And I will explain this later. So when it comes to digital technologies, we need to bear in mind that we live in a period of time that has been characterized as the fourth industrial revolution, because we have so many new technologies, so many valuable tools in our hands in order to support this transformation of our business models to become more cost effective and more productive. And I refer particularly to artificial intelligence and machine learning, robotic process automation, blockchain, virtual reality and augmented reality, Internet of Things, 5G, cybersecurity. We have plenty of very, very valuable technologies in our hands that are constantly under development, and they started offering a number of benefits for us. Before I get into some practical examples and see where exactly we need to focus when it comes to green tech, let's see the broader picture now about technology and other sectors. It is true that we live in the era of everything tech. So everything you can imagine, every single sector out there in the market has been affected, or it wants to be affected by these technologies, the technologies that I have just mentioned. So this is the reason why we end up having a plethora of new terms where tech is always there. We have fintech, finance and technology, regtech, regulation and technology, legal tech, insurtech, insurance and technology, subtech, supervisory technology, agritech, agriculture and technology, health tech, health and technology, edtech, education and technology, real tech, real estate and technology, and of course, green technology, green tech. And I'm sure that a simple Google search will generate for you a number of other similar umbrella terms, which shows that people just started combining their traditional business with some sort of technology. Either this is because they want to benefit from the momentum, or it is a catchy term. No matter what is the reason, the result is that we live in a period of time where everything evolves around technology. And when especially it comes to green tech, green and technology, what we actually have here is a type of technology. And remember, not just one technology. We are not talking about applying AI, artificial intelligence, in the environmental sector. No, we can apply any technology that can generate for us positive results. But this technology should be considered environmentally friendly based on its production process or its supply chain. So this is the acceptable, let's say, term when it comes to the common acceptable term, when it comes to defining what actually happens here by deploying technology in a number of environmental projects and in the green sector in general. But always it gives an added value to see what we get by doing so. I have gathered here a number of actual projects that are up and running in various sectors that one way or another are engaged with technology. Starting from the food sector, you can see there a ribeye steak that you can simply use blockchain technology to verify the origin and the proof of quality of this product. You have a project there where you can use the Internet of Things, one of the top technologies, in order to create the so-called smart house or smart cities. You have, again, blockchain technology when it comes to carbon trading systems, where actually there is the option, the possibility here is to use the technology and trade carbon dioxide emissions and be able to sell these using a specific trading system. When it comes to investment sector and financial sector, we have already programs, softwares, capabilities that help us to take a step further and make the most out of digitalization. And I refer again either to blockchain or even machine learning. Just one example, you can apply artificial intelligence and machine learning in order to give you more precise prediction about the way that your investor is about to behave under certain circumstances. And I want to give you also another insight of the broader cybersecurity system, and this comes from a very recent post that I like from CoinFirm that explains what happens actually when it comes to investigating money laundering cases. This is using the technology, we can even track and trace live money launderers and monitor how they launder stolen money or stolen crypto, and therefore be able to trace them and catch them. I'm not going to get into many details of this. I'm just giving you the picture here in order to understand the value of the technology across all sectors. And I'm coming now to my last final point here, which is about GreenTech and how, in the end of the day, this applies, let's say, to the legal sector, and what lawyers should see the whole thing evolving. So first of all, we have to bear in mind that European Union and I believe all jurisdictions around the world take a technology neutrality position in this case. When I refer to technology neutrality, I mean that every single individual, every single organization is free to choose the most appropriate and suitable technology for their needs. Their technology is not regulated, full stop. All right, don't expect, I want my colleagues especially to know this, don't expect any regulation placing any limitations to any technology. This cannot happen and should not happen, all right? Different technologies can be used provided that they aim at similar targets, all right? And this is a key principle, especially when it comes to the regulatory framework for electronic communications. We can see technology neutrality be a legal principle in the electronic communications framework of the European Union. No discrimination, open competition for every company to employ whatever technology they want and give them to the market, and then the market will decide with which one they will go. While all these are important also when it comes to the regulatory rationale. What I mean here is that For lawyers, GreenTech, FinTech, RegTech, all these things, all right, do not enjoy any specific or particular legal protection or legal prohibition. Laws, according to the academic theory, bibliography, and also regulations, laws should refer to the effects, functions, or characteristics of the technology, but never to a particular type of class of technology. That technology neutral approach should be always in place, always be respected when it comes to the drafting of legislations, where the aim is to describe the result that we aim to achieve without specifying the technology to be employed or regulated. Because in other words, otherwise we will get into severe problems of competition, promoting one technology, promoting one company over the others, etc., etc. This is the concept of the rule of law. And I'm sure that Christos Kassianidis, who takes the lead now, introducing his company and also looking at GreenTech from his point of view, he will shed more light in this matter. So thank you from me, and we catch up again after the presentations for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Christos Kassianidis, and I'm the portfolio manager of Eleon Capital Management. Let me share my screen with you, the presentation. Right, I will talk to you today about the company. I will also highlight certain areas in the environmental part of the investment market, but because it's so broad, I will take two topics, namely renewable energy and the agriculture. I will also talk a little bit about the advantages of investing in a fund structure, and I will also explain the different types of structures. So Eleon Capital Management is licensed by the Securities Exchange Commission of Cyprus, namely SISEC, and to offer the services that defined in the law, namely AIFM, which is the Alternative Investment Fund Manager service within the provisions of the European Directive. Now, this allows us to manage any alternative investment fund within the EU common market across a number of specialized alternative strategies. Our wealth management offering provides individuals with discretionary portfolio management based on a mandate and across all asset classes, including alternatives right to the more traditional types. The mandates are structured basically with a view to safeguard wealth, and we look at building a much more longer-term value. Eleon Capital is also licensed for the management of portfolios of investments, and this includes those by pension funds and institutions for occupational retirement provisions. And usually they give us their discretion, and it is we offer bespoke mandates based on the client. And at Eleon Capital, our vision is to be the best managers of growing our customers' wealth by designing these bespoke investment products, and we take a long view on investment performance and business development. Okay, going into the GreenTech and investments, as I said, I will focus more on the environmental part rather than technology. We have identified the main areas, this being renewable energy, raw materials, agriculture, production of waste, greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity and the circular economy. Okay, going into renewable energy, this is taken from a JP Morgan report, and they see that energy demand is set to grow by 40% until 2030. Global primary energy demand for renewables and waste totaled 85 exajoules. For the less technical people, this relates to roughly 14% of global energy demand. They also estimate demands for renewables and waste to rise to 124 exajoules in 2030. Focusing on power generation, they estimate that electricity output from renewables and biomass was 7,300 terawatts last year, and the model demand effectively doubling that to 14,600 terawatts in 2030. So of this increase in demand, we expect variable source of generation, including wind and solar, to comprise roughly about 95% of that. So as a result, by 2030, they expect wind and solar to comprise 63% of all total renewables. Also, McKinsey recently published a net zero transition report, which estimates that capital spending on physical assets or energy and land use systems in the net zero transition between 2021 and 2050 would amount by $275 trillion, or roughly $9 to $10 trillion per year on average, which is a much larger annual increase of today, which we're roughly sitting at $3.5 trillion. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, estimates that annual investments in clean energy and energy efficiency needs to be increased by a factor of 6 by 2050, comparing with 2050 levels, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Moving to agriculture, agriculture accounts to 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So the next largest category, drawing around about $400 billion to $600 billion in annual investments by 2025. The global methane pledge announced by the COP26, which aims to cut methane emissions by 30% by 2030, further underscores a need for investments in methane inhibitors to reduce the methane emissions in agriculture. Now, an upstream methane fee was also introduced in the Build Back Better framework in the US, initially proposing a fee of $1,500 per metric ton. Last few years have also seen a growing focus on second-hand generation biofuels. This is also known as advanced biofuels, due to their potential to decarbonize various industries. The Controlled Environment Agriculture, the CEA, has potential to also accelerate commercial agriculture. This is a very exciting area. Hydroponics allow for higher farming yields. Hydro farms expect CA to grow rapidly is due to the expansion of the population, having limited resources, and there's a big focus on environmental and security of agricultural systems versus the more traditional outdoor farming, and this has come to light. The adoption of CA may continue to accelerate, more particularly in the commercial side of agriculture industry, where growth can be achieved that will be more profitable and more efficient. Based on industry publications that I've read, Hydrofarms anticipates global CA to grow roughly 16% over 5 years, and vertical farming growth roughly 24-25% over the same time frame. And the good thing of CA, it allows more efficient use of land and fresh water. It's actually up to 98% less water is used than soil-based agriculture. This also reduces the need to use fertilizers and pesticides. So this reduces carbon emissions as a vertical farming allow operations to be located also closer to the end users as opposed to traditional farming, which is more out of the city. Right, so why invest via fund? As most people know, the good benefits is diversification, because usually a fund invests in more than one project. The funds are regulated. This gives comfort and security via checks and reports demanded by the regulators. There's a strong board of directors, which ensures governance. There's always a strong risk management team, offers transparency. The investor always has view of the underlying security, or they get the statement of their holdings, their participations. Entry and exit simplified, as opposed to a business trying to find a seller in the market can be tricky. Here you sign your redemption form and you paid out your net asset value. There are also certain tax incentives. For foreign investors, there's no withholding tax on dividend distribution. There's no capital gains tax on securities. The 12.5% corporate tax percent applies, but there's no stamp duty on issue of any units of alternative investment funds. And investors in AIFs are not obliged to have any permanent establishment in Cyprus either. Right, types of structures. We have the AIF, or Alternative Investment Fund. This allows us to invest in any type of investment assets, including transferable securities. It can be real estate, it can be private equity, precious metals, art. It all fits under there. The UCITS is a more regulated fund, but the downside is that one can only invest in transferable securities, so namely equities, bonds, and cash. In Cyprus, we have another vehicle called the Registered Alternative Investment Fund, or called the RIFE. This is slightly less regulated, which makes it more cost effective, but it allows us to invest in all types of assets. I'll briefly just mention, because we're running out of time, the investment vehicle options. You have the VCIC, the variable capital, you have the fixed capital, the FCIC. You have a common fund where there's no legal personality, and then you also have an LP, which is a limited partnership, mainly for a venture capital type of projects. The LP is preferred, because the way it works is that investor commits but does not pay capital, and the capital is only deployed when the company meets its objectives. So in other words, no money is sitting idle or uninvested. But once the companies meet certain goals, then more capital is deployed. So the fund manager makes sure that the companies is sticking to the plan, and we find that is in the most efficient. Thank you. That's all from me, and I'll hand you over to the next speaker.
Hello, good morning. My name is Georgina. I'm an associate at Stelios Americanos law firm. I will present to you the regulatory framework around GreenTech. Okay, so traditional methods to tackling challenges relating to pollution and natural resource management are being disrupted by modern technologies. The global COVID-19 pandemic has necessitated an increase in virtual learning, emphasizing the need for collaboration between businesses, supply chains, and governments. Although environmental regulations are not new, they have generally been linked more with production facilities than with products. However, this has been altered drastically during the past years. Regulations are having a very significant global influence on supply chains in the electronics, telecommunications, and automobile sectors, among others. As a result, eco-compliance rules have become a key concern for corporations and investors seeking both product conformity and continuous market access. The difficulties are numerous. The challenges of product eco-compliance grow significantly with globalization and outsourcing of manufacturing. For example, a product may be created in the United States and its components supplied from vendors around the globe, or it may be manufactured by a manufacturer in China and distributed to places all over the world. Therefore, the EU is attempting to largely harmonize its rules and regulations to aid the process and achieve a uniform effort towards attaining the sustainability goals. Moving on. The United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, adopted in 2015, is the most comprehensive attempt to address sustainability concerns in modern times. They present a universal blueprint to eradicate poverty, safeguard the environment, and ensure that everyone lives in peace and prosperity. Yet innovation is integral to achieve all sustainability development goals. It is only through human resourcefulness and ingenuity that it will be possible to create a drastic and enduring effect. Therefore, countries and private actors across the globe formulate policies to attain these goals. Moving on to the European Union. The European Union has consistently stressed the importance of investing in sustainable activities to accomplish the EU's 2030 climate and energy targets, as well as the objectives of the European Green Deal. We must steer investments toward sustainable initiatives and activities. COVID-19 has highlighted the importance of redirecting funds to long-term initiatives that will make economies, companies, and society more resilient and robust to climate and environmental shocks. Specifically about the European Green Deal, the European Commission unveiled the European Green Deal in December 2019, committing to climate neutrality by 2050. EU member states agreed to cut emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels, and to make the EU the first climate neutral continent by 2050. The Green Deal is a chance for all enterprises in their environmental sector to expand and by promoting sustainable solutions and establishing new markets. It operates in 8 thematic areas, and the targets and measures have been defined to advance climate protection and biodiversity, supply Europe with clean energy, create sustainable industry, eliminate pollution, establish environmentally compatible mobility, and establish large-scale sustainable agriculture. The EU is allocating around 1 trillion euros from 2021 to 2027 to accomplish these goals. and execute the measures, as well as bringing several rules and legislation into national implementation. Through funding and subsidies, this massive budget will develop a sustainable economy and open up new economic areas on the European market. Moving on to reporting obligations, the relevance and importance of environmental, social, and governance considerations for investors have never been greater. Specifically, the Ernst & Young Worldwide Investment Research for 2020 indicated that at least 98% of investors complete a formal or informal assessment for non-financial disclosure, compared to only 64% in 2013. Moreover, the research showed that non-financial performance has played a significant impact in 91% of investors' investment decisions. The degree to which firms are prepared for ESG risks is crucial in the decision-making and long-term investment management of an investor. EU law requires certain large companies to disclose information on the way they operate and manage social and environmental challenges. The EU legislation aligned with the EU Green Deal, namely the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the EU Taxonomy, and the Sustainable Finance Directive regulations, are on the path of improving the accuracy and completeness of reliability reports. Firstly, the CSRD is an updated version of the existing non-financial reporting directive. The European Commission expanded the scope from big and publicly traded corporations to large or publicly traded companies on regulated marketplaces. The issues that need disclosure, including social, personnel, environment, human rights, anti-corruption, and anti-bribery requirements, will stay intact. Moreover, the adoption of the CSRD will be complemented by the introduction of a new sustainability reporting standard to further streamline reporting. The information in the annual report will be subject to a required level of assurance, therefore enhancing the information's reliability among investors. All small and medium-sized listed companies will have approximately 3 years to comply with the new regulation. Moving on to the EU Taxonomy regulation. The EU Taxonomy is a classification system that is applicable to certain economic activities. Companies must substantially contribute to at least one of the following environmental objectives: climate change mitigation and adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, a transition to a circular economy and recycling, pollution prevention and control, and protection of healthy ecosystems. At the same time, they must not significantly harm any of the other 5 objectives. And of course, they must also comply with minimum social safeguards. Using the taxonomy, investors can therefore differentiate between really sustainable activities and greenwashing. The scope of impacted businesses is the same list as the CSRD. Lastly, the CFDR mandates that financial market players and financial report on the integration of sustainability risks and impacts into their operations of sustainability-related information regarding financial products. And finally, there are several directives that have been enacted in support of the EU Green Deal and in order to achieve sustainability goals. For example, we have the EU ROHS, that it relates to restriction of certain hazardous chemicals in electronic equipment. We have the REACH directive, which also relates to restriction on several chemicals in products. We have the directive on sustainable use of pesticides, which relates to the agricultural sector. Also the directive on packaging and waste, which relates to a circular economy. The directive on batteries as well. Waste Framework Directive and the Groundwater Directive. It relates to water management and pollution, and the directive relating to equality of petrol and diesel fuels. I would like to thank you, and I will move you on to the next presenter.
Okay, Thank you, Georgina. Let me open my presentation. Okay, can you see? Okay. Can you see the presentation? Okay. Kalimera. Welcome, everyone. Many thanks for this webinar. I would like to present probably the least exciting and yet very essential topic of risk management. We take risk management very seriously in Eleon Capital Management. My name is George Carvounis. I'm the director for Eleon Capital Management. My background is risk management, and we're going to talk a little bit about why risk management is very essential. And we're going to go top down. So why is risk management important? First of all, the obvious. We would like to enhance the assurance we give not only to the investors that entrust us with their capital, but also to all stakeholders, including directors and senior management. We want to have a system of checks and balances. For those that are familiar with risk management manuals, you may have seen the phrase 3 lines of defense. Very briefly, we have the first line of defense, the first line of risk management, which is on a business level, on a portfolio management level, on a project level. This is where the portfolio manager or the project manager applies risk management rules on a day-to-day basis. Then we have the second line of defense, and this is where the fund business and the risk management within the fund and the fund manager comes in. And the objective here is to bring the second line of defense closer to the first line of defense. Meaning, as risk managers within a fund structure, we want to get closer to the operational risks, to the market risks, to the legal risks that Harris mentioned on the first slide of the structure. But of course, it's also because it's the law. And we're going to see just a couple of things regarding the regulation for managers. So one of the most important things that the regulation says is that the risk management function and the portfolio management have to be separate and independent. The key word here is independent, and we want to see communication, but also we want to see some Chinese walls between the risk manager and the portfolio manager. Risk management has to have proper systems and tools in place. A robust risk management policy, tools to monitor, to measure the risks. But also, even when policies and tools are in place, frequency is equally important, because there's always a lag. Naturally, there is a lag between the first line of defense and the second line of defense. Thus, it's extremely important that the risk management function within the fund reports frequently, timely, to the board, to the investors, to the committees. And I will come to that. So how do we apply risk management in Eleon? First of all, we have the risk management function. There's a designated risk manager, and where appropriate, depending on the project, depending on the fund, depending on the structure, there is a risk consultant to assist. Apart from the risk manager and the risk management function, there is a risk management committee. So in this committee, we have various board members, we have advisors, sometimes we can bring a guest to help the decision-making when it comes to risk matters. And the risk management function, the risk manager and the committee report to the board. And of course, the board of directors have the ultimate responsibility for decision-making. Just to mention a few of the well-known risks that we see in various structures, including GreenTech. We may have various operational risks, such as legal risks, such as business risks. We may have liquidity risks, reputational, market, political risks. We see it unfortunately nowadays, concentration risks. So what the risk management function does is creating a risk registry where we put all those risks down and we document the severity of these risks, communicate that to the investors, the board, the stakeholders. Lastly, so how do we apply risk management on GreenTech projects? Well, first and foremost, and this comes at the board level, is selection. And this is key. Before we even start looking at the risk management project, we assess, the fund will assess the selected projects. And those projects are selected because there's a team of experienced people, reputable individuals. There's a track record of project completion. And also there are good commercial terms. There's potential there to monetize. Then after the project is selected, the risk management function will liaise directly with the project manager or the investment advisor, will identify key project milestones, key project timelines, key performance indicators, key risk areas, key risk indicators, and then proceed with the measurement, the identification, the measurement, the reporting, and where necessary, the mitigation. As mentioned before, it is key to report regularly and timely to the risk committees and to the board. The risk manager will also perform regular market outlook projections, depending on the project, as well as stress testing, where applicable. Last but not least, the risk manager will liaise with the other control functions, which is the third line of defense. You've got the first line, the project manager, the second line of defense, which is the risk management function, and the third line of defense, which are the other control functions, which is internal audit and compliance. A few examples of various risks. Even for GreenTech projects, we may have, apart from the usual obvious day-to-day operational risks, technology risks, or even delays, we may have problems from the financial or the commercial side of things, such as funding risks, liquidity risk, or even cash flow problems, licensing even issues, or the use of leverage or any other internal limits. So this is where I conclude the presentation. I hope I gave you a good idea of how we manage risk at Eleon, how we liaise, how we bring together the three lines of defense. And if you have any questions, there's a Q&A session. And I would like then to proceed to the two very exciting presentations about two GreenTech projects. Thank you.
So, good morning. Very nice to be here with you to discuss a couple of opportunities. I will talk about two projects actually, and then there will be another presentation for the third project. My name is Kyriakos Parfounas. I have been in the waste management and environmental sector for the last 22 years now. Worked a lot in waste management, recycling, and for the last 5 years, I worked as an international waste management consultant. In that sense, different projects come in our plate to support, to evaluate, to assist, and so on. Two of these projects I will present today. I work with Eleon Capital for this kind of identification of projects, but I'm also the sustainability leader with Grant Thornton, partnered with Grant Thornton, working on the sustainability in the business sector. So let's get into these exciting projects. Like first to say that indeed there is, we see the evolution of this kind of green projects in the waste management sector, but also in other sectors like renewable energy, new technologies in agriculture, and so on. These are two waste management projects that are, one of them is more mature, the other is less mature. So I would like to show this combination of different stages in projects. The first project is a biomass treatment plant in Cyprus. I will briefly go through the project. We are not providing here details of the projects, but this project is about the construction of a second generation biofuel treatment plant in the Potami area. It's towards the Troodos area, close to Astromeridis, 35 minutes from Nicosia. The plant is based on the technology of fast pyrolysis and will from organic waste, and will produce high quality liquid and soil fuels, for example, bio oil, which could be turned eventually into also green fuel, biochar and syngas from biomass, meaning mostly municipal organic waste, agricultural waste, forestry crops and residues collected from local suppliers. And of course, the biofuels produced will then be sold to the local market, and depending on the other byproducts, because it's a kind of a decision on how far you want to go into the technology and what kind of end products you have. Some of the products may be exported in the international market. The plant will offer a solution to the whole value chain from biomass waste through to fuel end user, to include biomass collection and biomass processing, energy generation and biofuel production. As we said, there are three types of biofuels: biogas, usually known as syngas in the pyrolysis language, liquid biofuel, also known as bio-oil or pyrolysis oil, and solid biofuel, commonly known as biochar or activated carbon after further treatment. The syngas will be used exclusively to power the plant, whereas the bio-oil and the char or the activated biochar and activated carbon will be sold to make the income of the plant. There are minimum specifications for petrol and diesel fuels. This base oil, the bio-oil, can be further processed into biodiesel, which of course has a very good value and a very good market, given the obligation of the member states to include biofuels in the fuel they sell. And of course, the quality of the solid charge has been tested with the material, either as biochar or, as we said, can be further treated as to become activated carbon, which can be traded in the international market and has a very good market. The technology, one of the things in this project, because pyrolysis has had problems over the years with different waste streams, it is of course well established for biofuels. And in this case, this project is based on one of the most tried and tested technologies of the ETIA company in France with more than 150 machines delivered in 35 countries on 5 continents. So we're talking about a commercially tested technology. So the issue of risks in the technology is taken care here by using a very good technology. This project is quite mature. There's a town planning permit, a construction permit. There are title deeds for the part of the land that is purchased and agreements for land that is rented. And of course, the value of the land in the area is not very high. So additional land could be bought, or even the land that is rented can be easily bought. There is a support letter from the Ministry of Energy. There are letters of intent for the purchase of the products by local petroleum companies, especially the biodiesel. There is interest for live coast trading. They can absorb all the production of the plant locally. And of course, there is interest and there is some research with the Cyprus University of Technology into this activated carbon, further enhancement of the biochar to activated carbon, which is a very good product with a lot of markets internationally. Steel production, it's using activated carbon. Ship maintenance uses activated carbon, so there is an international demand for this bioproduct. And of course, it has all the related environmental approvals. I will not get into the details, but we're talking about a project of around, with current prices, because the prices are going up, steel prices are going up, transport prices are going up for the equipment and stuff. So we're talking about roughly 20 million euros investment. The analysis is based on a 10-year time frame. No inflation has been included in this analysis. The corporate tax has been taken with a 12.5 rate. And the analysis is based on a 10-year loan from the government for approximately 11, with the government guarantees, not from the government, with around 12 million euros, about 60%, with an interest of 2.25. This is a project that has also been evaluated by the Juncker initiative and is in the list for investments in the Juncker package. And in terms of the financials, we are talking about a total revenue in the 10-year period of around 130 million euros. And an operating cost of around 48 to 50 million euros. One of the prudent issues in this analysis was that all the raw material for the project, which is around 40,000 tons a year, it's been calculated as having a cost of around 25 euros per ton, whereas at least for the time being, some of the raw material like garden cuttings or organic waste from households and so on will have a positive value for the plant. It will be paid to accept, for example, cuttings at around 10-15 euros per ton. It will be paid a gate fee from organic waste from households. So in reality, the financials will be better than what is included for prudence in the analysis. With the current numbers, we're talking about an NPV of more than 23 million euros and an internal rate of return of around 23%. But as we said, there is a potential for this to do even better, given that the raw material will not cost that, it will come with a gate fee at the same time. This is, as we said, the more mature project. There is already some construction work done on the land for preparation and stuff, so it's ready to go. Whereas the second project is actually more exciting if you think about it, but it's less mature. But I believe there is a lot of potential in this. I think it's associated to a certain extent with the third project we will discuss later on. But This is basically something that may sound strange to some people, but it's utilizing insects for solving the food and the food waste problem in the future. In reality, if you look at some of the analysis for the future and the needs for protein for feeding the increased population on the earth, they are talking about the insects being the answer to that in the future. This is a project based on this idea, not initially for human consumption, but basically using this protein produced by the insects for feeding animals, which is also another important need. So basically, we're talking about, let me see, okay, here we are. We are talking about using this insect, the black soldier fly, to produce protein, and we'll be using organic waste as raw material. Now, food waste is a huge problem. The advanced world is throwing about a third of the food produced. We're talking about millions and millions of tons. And if food waste were a country, if it was all put together and it was a country, it would be the second largest in the world by land area. So we're talking about a huge amount of waste, of food wasted. The idea is to feed insects with vegetable-based diet complying with EU rules for animal feed. In the EU, that means purely vegetable organic waste. If it's not within the EU, there is the potential to also feed the insects with catering waste, which means more meat and stuff in the waste, but not in the European Union. So feeding the worms and the insects with the organic waste, solving a problem that we have to deal with the organic waste. We grow the worms in an industrial approach to create, in big scale, to create the different byproducts that we can derive from the black soldier fly. Mastering the rearing of the black soldier fly in order to breed, produce, and collect millions of eggs every year. Every fly will produce 5 million eggs every year, 500 eggs every year, sorry. So we can, this is ongoing, this is sustainable by the insects themselves. And of course, using green chemistry to produce final products using mechanical processes and chemical extraction process to produce black soldier fly, protein oil, etc. For the time being, there is a pilot in Cyprus. Two young engineers with PhDs are working on this pilot. They want to take it full scale. There is already full scale plans doing that in different countries. For example, in Canada, significant investments in farming for this kind of insect breeding. The important thing with the insects is that they are by far, sorry, it's moving very, in terms of the production of protein by these insects, if we see here the comparison with other animals that produce protein for human consumption, but also for animal consumption, we see that it's in terms of land use, feed that we need to provide, and water, it's the most efficient way of producing protein compared to the cows, pigs, chicken and stuff. By far more efficient solution than the rest of the animals. So that's why people are saying that this is the future of protein as we move along and we need to feed more people and so on. Basically, as we said, the chain is that we feed vegetable waste, bio waste to the flies. And of course, once we have the worms, we use these worms to, a percentage of these worms, of course, we always need to leave worms for the flies for the reproduction, a percentage of those to produce animal feed, dry animal feed, also oil from the flies. They are both used as animal feed, and some other bioproducts, chitin, chitosan, which are used in biomedical applications, and that's a value added as well in in the income of such a project. The potential is huge for the future. The compounded growth rate is 31.1%. The market, the world market is projected to reach 10 billion by 2030. And of course, the high growth is mainly attributed to the increasing global meat demand, the growing agriculture industry, and the increasing demand for animal feed industry for alternative proteins due to rising prices of soy meal. The difference between the applications, for example, in certain areas in Africa, because of the pressure they have on on feeding humans, they have already processed the protein and are using the insect protein for human consumption as well. We don't know if that would be the big market in the future, but this is a potential that is happening already. It has been tried and tested, so even that potential is there in the future. Now, the plan of the team that is behind this project is to, once they master this process with a farm in Cyprus, to eventually turn it into a farm for the production of flies that will be also exported to other countries to produce the final products closer to the end markets. So they are thinking about a plant in Greece in the future and a plant in Egypt. And of course, as we said, for example, the plant in Egypt, being out of the EU, can also utilize other raw materials for feeding the worms and the flies, but that also gives access to huge markets like the African market and of course the European market when they enter, when they move to a production facility to Greece. The idea for the Cyprus facility, and this is the project we're discussing now, we're talking about a facility for 25 tons per day that will produce 12,000 tons per year of fresh worms. These will be sold as fresh worms, and 3,000 tons of processed worms. So combine these two, the processed material sells about 3,000 euros per ton. The fresh worms sell for about 1,500 euros per ton. So combined, they make the income, a very handsome income of the project. We'll see a few things about the financials. As we said, this is a less mature project, but we are talking about the pilot. This is the phase one. They are in the pilot scale phase. They are looking for money to develop their business plan, and eventually they will be looking for money for the investment into the real plan, which is if we look at the numbers here, it's about 10 million euros for the investment in the facility, in the plant. Operating costs less than 2 million euros a year. And of course, it's phenomenal rate of return, 250, and the net present value is 76 million euros. Of course, all the process has to be done very carefully to make sure that breeding the insects is secure. There is no risks, the access to raw material and so on. But of course, there is a lot of waste that needs to be treated on the island. So in terms of finding raw material, it shouldn't be a huge risk, but also making sure that the breeding itself is done properly. And that's what they do now with the pilot. They're checking all the parameters, temperatures, humidity, what do they feed the insects so that they have the best possible production. So these are just two examples of projects. I will leave you with that. Thank you for your attention. And of course, we will all be around for your questions later on. Thank you very much. I'll pass on the ball to the next presenter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yair Cohen. I'm really happy to be here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Algamol. We are a Cyprus-based biotech company, and we're revolutionizing microalgae production. We're creating a scalable, independent, and basically a global network of local algae production farms that utilizes AI capabilities and disrupt the microalgae supply chain globally. And today's topic for today is the key role of microalgae in tomorrow's global food chain. It's something that's really dear and important to me, and I hope you'll be interested and you will like the presentation. So today we will talk about the growth in demand for sea-based protein. Then we will talk about the industry challenges and, of course, what trends emerge from them. After that, we will drill down and try to understand the crucial role of microalgae in the aquaculture industry. And after that, we will talk about how Algamol revolutionizes the process by harnessing innovative photobioreactor with modern-day growing methodologies. And to wrap everything up, we will talk about the various industries that could also benefit from our solution. And we have a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so let's dive in. I want to begin with showing you, the moment that the slide will move, thank you. I want to begin with showing you that contrary to popular belief, sea-based protein is the leader in animal-based protein consumption, with a global consumption of 157 million metric tons in 2020, and that's according to FAO reports. Now, not only that, the FAO also estimates that fish consumption should have a 30% increase by 2035. The UN also estimates that the global population will grow to almost 10 billion by 2050. We, as leaders of the biotech industry, have a responsibility to ensure the growth of this industry in a sustainable way and to close the gap between the supply of fish and the demand of it. Okay? So this graph shows the aquaculture fisheries in contrast to the plateau open water fishing has sustained in the 1990s. And we're trying to understand why is that? Why is open water fishing stays on a plateau and aquaculture fishing has rise and the demand has yet to be filled up yet? So, due to increased demand, we started to improve fishing technologies as a humanity to the point of extreme overfishing. And that overfishing can impact the entire ecosystem. It can change the size of the fish remaining. It can change how they reproduce and at the speed at which they mature. And all of that is leading to a depletion or even to a complete collapse altogether. This has created a snowball effect, leading to ecological disruption in the ecosystem, to the effects of bycatch, etc. And this has created a snowball effect. Sensitive natural habitats are sometimes converted into fish farms, and that could lead to dramatic environmental implications that was well documented. And we can have a complete webinar about the adverse effect of the fishing industry, which is a subject that is really dear to my heart. But the industry challenges are not only about catching the fish. This map shows the inconceivable voyage that that fish products go through in the production cycle until they reach consumer. From the early on larva fishes to the farms, transport to processing, and then to distribution, and then to clients. This massive use of shipping does not only harm the quality of the products, but is also responsible for an enormous carbon footprint. Another problem, and that was being demonstrated by the critical impact that the general global supply chain has suffered, like all of you know, from COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. And that led us to understand that we cannot trust the global network of supply chain in this day and age. And after realizing that, both regulators and governments and industry makers understood the need for land-based sustainable fish farms that are closer to population centers. New methodologies like the recurring aquaculture system, also referred to here as RAS, allow for an on-land closed rearing system used for multiple fish species. These systems were created trying to solve a lot of the sustainability issues in mind, and a full process next to synthesis centers. So in order to understand the key role of algae in those future ways of growth, let's dive in a bit more to the use of microalgae in aquaculture. Microalgae are utilized for zooplanktons used in aquaculture food chain for juvenile stages of abalone and other fish species, and they serve, first of all, as feed for our food. These organisms are fed directly or indirectly to the cultured larval organism. Larval are young fishes. So different ways of growing algae will create different results for the nutritional value inside of the algae and for the fishes. Combination of different algae species provide a better balance for nutrition and improve the fish growth. They also use live feed for all growth stages of mussels. So you feed mussels with microalgae throughout the duration of their growing process. Different species, as we talked about, can vary significantly in their nutritional value. So, and of course, if we grow them in different conditions. And microalgae, and this is maybe the most important thing to remember from this, increases the survivability of farmed species, their health, and improve the product toleration and quality. And we always joke, and if we could ask the fishes, I bet they would be also happier. So from all of that, what we talked about, it's clear that there is a lot of issues to face and the change needs to happen. So in order to create a sustainable change, we need to understand that change started from the beginning. We need to change our ways in order to provide the population with a sustainable fishing industry. And that change should start from the beginning. So the first step in agriculture culture is using algae production. And that is where we decided to be disruptive. This is why Algamol developed their turnkey solution that goes different kind of algae whenever needed, wherever needed, close to the fish farms. They are not only cheap to set up, but also to maintain, and they require no expert employees due to our innovative AI-powered remote control algorithm. So without the expensive staff, without the need for expensive maintenance and setup costs, we can have better financials and economy of scale. We can grow every microalgae everywhere, and all we need is minimal space, water, and electricity. We are using a global network of local farms. And with that, we can utilize our bioreactor and manage the data, constantly improving the protocol and adapting it to local needs and weather conditions. This secures the manufacturing process on a local level that isn't being impacted by changes to the global supply chain. And we said it again, in COVID-19 and Ukraine, this is really important for a lot of industries to secure the beginning of their supply chain. We can deliver an all-in-one, intelligent, scalable solution with the economy of scale, of course, that addresses the problem we spoke about in this presentation on the critical first step at the beginning. And not only that, our solution applies to other industries like food supplements, cosmetic, pharma, natural colors, or even carbon capture, like we talked about previously in this presentation. All of these verticals suffer from same challenges like the disruption of the global supply chain. And we believe that we can have a center role in tomorrow's algae producing future and to take an even bigger part as we go forward. And to summarize, like my esteemed colleague Georgina, that uses the UN 17 SDGs, sustainable the SDGs. So I chose 3 of them from the UN because we do have the responsibility to create a sustainable and healthy industry to provide for near future population. So we need to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture, also aquaculture. We need to ensure sustainable production and the production patterns, and that we're doing with the disruption of the supply chain. We need to conserve and sustainably use the ocean, sea, and marine resources for sustainable development. And by taking growing fish inland, we're making for a better ocean. And to close my presentation, I would like to say that we are aiming for a better world, and to produce algae that are a key role in tomorrow's feed for humans in the future. But not only here on Earth, our bioreactor can grow every algae everywhere, and maybe someday we can even grow algae for the moon. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure. Here is my contacts if anybody would like to approach us. At the moment, we are bootstrapped and self-financed, but we're going to start raising capital soon for improving our traction and acceleration. And you are free to hit me up on every way here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Yair. Thank you all for your presentations. We're absolutely fine with the time, so I think we managed during this 1 hour and 30 minutes to give a very useful overview of the GreenTech market, both from a business perspective, regulatory perspective, and the legal perspective. So I think that now there is possibility, if there are people that want to address any questions, we will all be happy to answer those. In the meantime, I have a couple of questions, all right, and I think both questions come from the presentations that we have seen today. The first question is a general one, and I think that a lot of people that attend this webinar, maybe they share the same question. So we heard a lot, I mean, about legal obligations, about business trends, investment trends around these kind of investments. So I understand that there must be a sort of multiple reasons why we witness this interest and attention worldwide towards this kind of investments. So the question is, do you think that these reasons, first of all, some legal obligations to meet some policy standards put by the European Union, by OECD, by various organizations, all these are there, and we all need to understand that we have to contribute one way or another. So that's one side of things. But on the other side of things, do you think that investing in this sector, it is something that can likewise attract the attention of the investors, in the sense that they can give high return of investments? Or you think that this is just the beginning and we wait to see? What's the current status when it comes to return of investment? Christos?
Yes, definitely there's a push from the regulatory side to try and shift funds into more environmental friendly investments. Even in the marketplace in Bloomberg, you can find ESG, environmental sustainability and governance rating for each listed security. So when you invest selectively, you can, kind of quantify in calculations a certain way. So, and this is evolving. So, in terms of SciSec, the regulators, there's even a dedicated web page to sustainability. We have to, for us as an AFM regulated entity, we have to report on different aspects on our funds and when we're investing, and we have to give some quantification to the ESG matter. Now, there is also a big push from all governments. This is kind of helps the investments. For example, the presentation Kyriakos made on the biomass, it's on the list of approvals from the European Union. They give lower interest loans. There's also certain grants that can be eligible. So it makes the investment area more friendly and easier. You know, it's also possible to have a one-on-one with the ministry to also negotiate certain tax breaks. You know, and the list goes on.
Yeah, I think personally that despite the fact that we all somehow don't like when we have to meet with more compliance standards, all right? So the more compliance requirements, more headaches for all of us. But I think that in this case, all right, everything happens apparently for a reason. We all understand and we all respect this reason, but at the same time, there is huge scope for some, good type of investments here, alternative investments from some perspective. We heard about some, I think, brilliant projects, a lot of ideas, algae, biomass. I mean, those projects show pave the way, let's say, all right, to what we all need to see coming in the next years. And knowing from personal experience, it is, I think, the most vivid example of this is countries in Middle East, like UAE, like Saudi, countries that for decades and decades have been associated with, petrol, this kind of petrol wealth and trading. So they have been associated with this, and now you see that they are planning the next, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 years based on sustainable solutions, sustainable investments, eco-friendly investments. And this tells a lot about what is coming for all of us.
Harry, if I may comment on this. There is no question that we should be looking for projects in these new areas that have good internal rate of return, have a good return for the investment. There is no question about that. At the same time, we have to be very frank with ourselves that we did a lot of harm over the years, and we need to find a balance between the returns and finding other ways of doing things. I will use a quote that I heard recently from a well-known professor in sustainability. He said that we are close to being the generation that fails to save the world they live in because it was not cost efficient to save it. So that's where things are getting. We have scientists are talking about 3 years of a window of opportunity to change the route of history in terms of the investment. So we should be looking into utilizing technologies, all the new technologies to make things differently.
Yeah.
But as Christos was saying, the European Union and other countries around the globe, like Canada and so on, they are moving big times into this, and they provide through the regulation and through the obligations of the financial institutions, either borrowed funds or equity capital based on ESG criteria. So the projects that will have these characteristics will have access to funds, they will have better cost of capital, and eventually that will improve their financial performance as well. So I think there is no option, there is no other way.
Yeah, I think, and you are very right. And I remember one sentence that someone in my last trip to Dubai that told me, and that explains everything for me. He said that the mandate now from their ruler is to get prepared when they get the last drop of oil, it would to be a day of joy and not tears. So this is how they build now, you know, the roadmap for the next generations. And I have another question, and this goes to Yair, because I know that you are perhaps in a better position than all of us, having, you know, the experience across many countries, all right, and be able to compare, you know, the mentalities of the people, all right, in those countries. And I always have, you know, the question from 1 to 10, all right, when it comes to Cyprus, how mature do you think that we are in this field? And I'm not talking about just people like us that we are in the services sector, right? And we operate like this. I'm talking also about, you know, the public sector. That's very important as well. So it is important to listen from you. What is your understanding? What is your prediction in this field?
That's actually a great question. So thank you for asking that. I feel as different geographies really do have different personalities, and becoming aware to issues like that are sometimes transparent is really important for this concept to be embedded throughout the population. So I feel Cyprus is and the regulators, and there is a lot of intention, and there is a honest attempt from key players trying to introduce biotechnology philosophy into the business world, like this webinar is. And this is a really good example of this kind of key players. Although I feel we as humanity in general are not thinking enough about what are we doing with our waste, what are we eating, and how are we making all of these industries that are basically building the foundations of our life more sustainable. And if I'll also combine the previous question, just like because we can, I think this also goes with growth and return of investment, because we are in the tech verticals. Yeah, so most of us look for growth, exponential growth, quick growth, to get traction really fast and to be there on the field. But this day and age of growth in any cost is ending. And investors are also looking for returns of investments that are more closer in date. And that's why the regulator also helps with different funding and different investment vehicles to support these attributions. So I feel like we're in a really good position in general. The Cyprus Innovation Authority is really much helpful and attempting to create a change. But with, like in everything, we in general, as the population of the global population, we put ourselves in a problematic position in terms of sustainability. And right now the whole community is awakening and the shift is starting. And this is why it is the perfect moment to join the revolution and to be a part of it, and to push these issues that are important to us to the agenda of the business world. So this is why I really appreciate and thank you for this opportunity and the webinar. And
Well, thank you. The pleasure is ours. First and foremost, for having you talking about these projects. Thank you all very much, Christos, Kyriakos, George, Yair, Georgina, for the lovely presentations. Thank you all for your effort in organizing and having this webinar. I'm sure that all our attendees enjoy this webinar. We had a lot of registrations about this webinar, and I'm telling this because we promise, and shortly after the end of this webinar, all registrants will get by email the presentations that you have seen today. So thank you all again, and we all keep in touch. It's just the beginning, right? So this is a very niche but very developing sector. We have a lot of things and a lot of learning experience to get through this process, and I'm sure that we will all happy if any of our friends that attended this webinar wants more clarifications or ask any questions, to respond and take the discussion further later. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.